All right, maybe then let me try to give some clarification on that. Okay, now let's see, maybe Valerian want to put a qualification. Yes, but otherwise, so if in terms of this question, so what is the information? What information? So we're saying that we are treating the information, the human as an information processor. So, and I'm trying to also help us that look at the information, the human as a computer. If you look at the human as a computer, then you are saying the information input is coming to this human computer, so to speak, and then output is coming out of the human computer. And so what information is coming is, in this case, is just the ordinary information, all right? The ordinary, yes, let's call it information in this case. It will be difficult to differentiate between data and information in this case. But we're saying, so information, for example, if somebody has said something, so it comes, how does it, how do you hear? And of course, you hear by the sense of hearing. You hear by your ears. Somebody has said something. Maybe to make it also a little more practical, suppose somebody told you their name. You meet with them the first time, and they say, I'm so and so. So that comes through the sense of hearing. Of course, you have also seen them. Of course, in this case, there is also the sight. So, of course, we can say is that combination. You have seen the person, but the person has also told you their name. So there are two things that you need to later remember. In this case, you need to remember this person physically. If you see them, that can say, oh, I have seen this person. But there is also now the issue of the name. So can you also remember their name? But that's what we are saying. The input comes through the senses. And the input, of course, is whatever you have interacted with through the senses, either by hearing or by seeing or by tasting or by the sense of touch. We have the sense of touch. And of course, there is also the sense of smell. So whatever you interact with through the senses, that's what we were interacting with. The time that it comes to the first time to it comes to you through that, then you are getting the input, and then it is being processed. So that you have interacted with the first time, you are now, or just when you are experiencing it at that time, then it enters into the processor. In this case, it's a human processor. Of course, at this point, we don't want to get into the details, which part of the human is doing the processing. But of course, a lot of it has to do with the memory, the brain. All right. So then it is therefore goes through the processing. And we are saying that as it goes through the processing, then you can now, there is the output. The output is either you have gained some knowledge, which will go to the memory, or you actually need to respond physically depending on the situation. For example, of course, what happens if, of course, I have not done this myself, but I cannot just imagine, because I have never had that experience, that suppose you just all of a sudden saw a lion, just suddenly. So how do you react to that? Now that is how you react to that is going to be the output, right? But what the input is seeing the lion. And then, of course, that goes with the processing in some way. And then how you are going to respond to that is what we are calling the output. So how do we respond? Of course, there are some things that, of course, one of the things that you would start thinking about is running away. But anyway, that could be one. Or hide some, maybe you are in a place where you are able to quickly get into some protection, and you, of course, get into that. That's a response, a physical response. But there could be some other responses that are not necessarily physical. Of course, one of them is you get filled with fear. Certainly, you'll get that. There's a sense of fear, which is also an output. Yes, you see the lion, you get fearful about the situation. That's an output. So what we're saying is that just the ordinary way we interact with the environment. That is the information. That's what we are calling the information, which is being processed. So, like as I've said, I'm trying to give the analogy of seeing a lion. So you see a lion, and then so the whole of that experience starts getting processed by your information processor. The human information processor within you starts to process that, and so finally you need to what you have experienced is of course going to bring out an output of some sort. And I said maybe one of them would be you are filled with fear. Otherwise, well, you did not have fear before, so something is happening. So you have the fear, you not now, of course, then quickly that fear may also guide you to do further responding as an output. Maybe if you think that you can run as fast as you can, then you run. Or if you are near some place you can get some protection, then you run quickly into the protection and maybe hide yourself. All these are part of the output of what you have experienced at that point. And so when you first see the lion, that is the input. You have seen a lion. And then, so that is, of course, these of course should be very fast. Some of these things happen very fast. The processing, of course, is not something that's going to take, a long time. It's a matter of a fraction of a second. From the input to the output, of course, there are some things that may take a little longer, like deciding to run, but the decision to run may come very quickly, or at least the one which will come fast is actually the fear. You get fear for that is going to come very fast in the split of a second. So this processing is not something that is going to take a long time. Although the way you are doing the diagram, they are saying the first stage, the second stage, third stage, fourth stage, and it looks like a long thing, processing stages that it is taking. No, it may not take that long. It is in the split of a second. It has already moved from input to output. Well, I don't know whether I've been able to bring you closer to understanding what your question is intended. Kiprop, you could write it again, just in case there is more clarification we can put at your question. All right, Valerian is also responding to that question and has put there, since HCI could be varying in different service industries, information may be guest user or service details, etc. All right, and Kiprop is also responding there that you feel clearer what that is all about. So these 4 stages may be something that happens in a split of a second. You can imagine, for example, if by mistake, maybe you are talking, sometimes we get animated when we are speaking. You are in the middle of a hot debating, and then the other realizes that you are near something very, very hot. You just stretch your hand and you find your finger on a very hot surface. You can imagine how you respond. to that. It's in the split of a second. You just feel it and you quickly remove your finger. Of course, the first response is that the first output is that you feel the heat. You feel the heat. You realize that this is a hot thing. It can destroy me. It can burn me. So immediately, so you have your finger there. You sense the heat. So already you are already having an output there. So the heat, you feel the heat. Of course, your finger. So this is a sense of touch. I think that's the sense of touch. You touch, and your finger feels the heat. So this is something that is dangerous, and you quickly process that. You realize there is a danger here. You pull off the finger. So I think sometimes a combination of mental reactions and sometimes physical. Sometimes it's just mental. Sometimes actually you do a physical response. All right, I think then we can go on. So this diagram is in the document. The document, sorry, I did not put this document earlier, but it should be there now. At the portal, you'll be able to see this diagram as part of the document that I've been using for our discussion. And so we should be, today again, I will not keep you for long. I will allow you some time of the class to respond to the discussion forum for this particular topic. So the lecturer will be concluding a little earlier. So let me share the document again, and then we can continue to look at it. All right, I'm trying to now share the screen again so that I can display the document we are using for discussion, labeled Lesson 2, the human factor. So we're looking at the human factor. So in a short while, I'm sure it will be displaying. Today, we are grateful that the network is working very well and things are quick, and also the server is responding very well. So the document is already displaying. So we are looking at that section where it is talking about the human information processing. So let me just expand it again here and then move down to where we are. So I had to change to the whiteboard so I can have the diagram. So the diagram is in the document, but the system is not being able to display the diagram. All right, so we had already covered this portion here, and I wanted to make sure that we are clearer now with the human information processing model and the diagram that captures that, looking at the human as what we are calling human information processing, or the human as a processor, as an information processor. And this part we are talking about attention. I think that is also quite well explained now. I think I will let you look at this portion later. That is part of what we've partly have already explained, the importance of attention in the human information processing. That whole the stages that the information has to, or the input has to go through before it turns into what we can call information as far as the human is concerned, or knowledge. In this case, actually, finally, it is supposed to be knowledge, and also it may cause us to respond in certain ways. So what is the role of attention? I've said the more you pay attention, then the better information is stored in memory. Actually, this one is more related to memory. What you can remember is a factor or is a function of how much attention you paid to the input. So, for instance, if you are somewhere where there is a training is going on, somebody is sharing something. So, how much attention do you pay? So, the more attention you pay, then the better the information will be stored in your memory. And in that case, you should be able to remember better in the coming days. So again, we often talk about being overloaded, the memory getting overloaded. When we're doing certain things, again, we don't want to. Now this is also very important. We will need to make sure that we make it easier to remember things. We always need to come up with ways of being able to remember things. Of course, there are some things that there is nothing that can be done. But for example, in a teaching, it's always good to keep on looking for ways of making it easy for somebody to remember, and that sometimes we always do, but not always, but most of the time we do. But once in a while, we are not very good at coming up with ways to make people remember something. But that's what we're saying is that come up with something that makes it easy to recall quickly. All right. And maybe this one will say later, but is that issue of memory getting overloaded. But for now, I'll just read that portion later and get everything that is spoken there. Again, it's also mentioning about focused attention. So that is when you focus on something that is focused attention. But attention can also be divided. Sometimes you can imagine. Sometimes we do that. We're trying to listen to what is being said in different times. So, for example, if you are now looking at a program in the TV, and somebody in the house is trying to talk to you, that is a kind of divided attention. So you're trying to listen to both. You are still going on looking at a program in the TV. Somebody is trying to speak to you. That is divided attention. So you have to kind of decide to do focused attention, where you decide now, letting me focus to this. So of course, if somebody is speaking to you in the house, of course, the right thing is to first of all switch off from the TV. Pay attention to the person that's speaking to you in the house. That now becomes a focused attention. So there is the concept of focused attention versus divided attention. Again, attention can be voluntary or involuntary. I'll let you look at the document and make sure that you are familiar with all these concepts that seem to be related to attention. But this is also important up here. The human brain is limited in capacity. Okay, so we may not always remember everything. In fact, sometimes there's some things that we are trying to put in our memory might cause us to forget some other things. Now, that one is quite difficult for me to explain how it happens. How come we say the human brain is limited in capacity? Of course, that is a fact, but let me not attempt to explain how that happens. Okay, so focusing attention at the interface. So when it comes now to the interaction between the human and the computer, we have to come up with ways of attracting the human attention. How does the human attention capture things at the of course, this one is as we're looking at this computer screen, And of course, we also learning some things from the screen, getting to know where that type of an icon is. When I want to boldface my text, where do I go? When I want to save my document, where do I go? That has to do with especially icons. So how do you remember all these? And so this portion here is trying to take us to that. It says that techniques which can be used to guide the user's attention include what? Include how we structure whatever we want the user to notice. So how we structure that. There is a concept called the grouping concept, which came up with what is called Gestalt laws. Now we'll be looking at this later in the study. So you can have a spatial and temporal cues that can help in that. Color coding, alerting techniques, when there is an alert that comes up to help us to pay to kind of it wants us to pay attention to something. So there could be an alert, maybe a sound, maybe an animation. So these are some of the ways, some of the techniques that we can use to attract attention of the user at the screen. So we need to consider how do we attract the user's attention at the screen, and what are some of the things that we need to do to make it easier for the computer user to be able to know what they need to do when they come to the computer. We try to come up with ways of reducing how much they need to get from memory. And we'll be talking about this later on, the issue of avoiding, removing as much of having to have the user try to remember things, because it's not easy sometimes to remember so many things. So how do we make it easy for the user at the interface, so that the interface itself has ways of making the user remember, rather than the user trying to remember from their own memory? We put something at the screen that helps the user remember. So we'll be looking at that concept later on reducing memory overload. All right, now I deleted something here. This area here, this is a subheading, and I think I deleted the whole statement here by mistake. This should be reading the human memory. Okay, memory. I'm trying to put the M there, but okay, memory. So now again, from the diagram, we talked about the memory, and although that's a different model, so the other model is human information processing, but there is this other model here, which is called the multi-store model of memory. The multi-store model of memory, which says that memory can be looked at as having three components. Of course, these are not physical divisions, but we are saying that the way it seems to work is like we can look at it as having three components, what we are calling the multi-store model of memory. And the researcher that came up with this one, down here, it says these two persons here who researched on this concept, says that in 1968, Atkinson and Schifrin developed a model of memory formed of three buffers, which will store memories and control processes which move information between the buffers. So for them, they are saying that when it comes to memory, we can look at memory as comprising of three stores, of three buffers. Now, the word buffer, again, I want to believe that you are familiar with the word buffer. A buffer is like a store. It's like some area that you can store some data before it can move to another point, etc. Especially during the processing, when it is not storing in hard disk and all that. So when it is just in memory itself, so we have what we call the buffers. So the three memory stores are the sensory information store, the short-term memory, which is also called the working memory, and also the long-term memory. Down here, sorry, this one is a bit low. So that memory store is a long-term memory. So memory can be considered to consist of three stores: the sensory information store, or just the sensory store, the short-term memory, or working memory. Short-term memory normally shortened as STM, and then the third memory store called the long-term memory, or the in a short LTM. And this diagram tries to capture that. For some reason, this one is showing here the diagram. I don't know why the other one could not show. So this one is showing here diagram of trying to capture that concept of memory as consisting of three different buffers: the sensory memory, the long-term memory, and the short-term memory. And says that so the sensory memory is when the input is interacting with the senses. So like we were saying, for example, touching a hot object. So at the point where you touch, that's the sense. So the information is the input is coming through the senses. So the stimulus is coming through the sense. So that what you experience at that point is being stored very briefly at the sensory memory. But if you pay attention, it can then go to the short-term memory. So the short-term memory is when you are now paying attention, then whatever you are paying attention to may now get stored in the working memory. So that's like when you are meditating, or when you are paying that attention, then you are allowing the process to proceed to the short-term, what we are calling the short-term memory, or the working memory. And it says that if you continue paying that attention for long enough, then some of what has come to the working memory can actually proceed on to the next level of memory, the long-term memory. And this theory says that when something goes to the long-term memory, it is almost permanent. You can remember it for a long time. And I'm sure each one of us is likely to be able to recall some things that we can remember, but which we actually interacted with them. The first time that we are interacting with them is a long time ago. Or, of course, maybe it's something that we have been doing now and then, and therefore it is becoming part of the, maybe we can say part of us, that, even if I later now stay for a long time without either hearing or seeing or being physically doing that particular action, maybe like the training, as we said, you find that you can still recall. And I'm sure even with the training, I think some things like in sports, you find that somebody may not have been doing their game. Maybe they are footballers. They like football. Maybe they have been playing football. Even if they probably take some span of time without playing football anymore, for a long time, if they say, no, I've decided to go back to playing football, you find that actually they are likely to pick up and become just as good, or probably even better than previously, because it is something that they have done. It's a kind of a part of them, but especially in terms of memory, remembering, you find that if you have not, there's a place that you have lived before, and then you move to another place, and then for a long time, you have not gone that place before, and then you decide, oh, let me go back to maybe see something in this place where I used to be. You find that you can actually so easily remember your way around. Of course, things could have changed, and yet you can remember the exact place that you want to go and which you have not gone for quite a while. It could even be several years, and yet you are able to find your way around because you are remembering. So he's saying that if you allow, when something has come to the short-term memory, it's very, very likely that you will end up into the long-term memory, and then it means that you can. So now the theory, as I've said, says that if something comes to the long-term memory, then it is almost permanent. It can be remembered for a long time in the future. So I think for today that will be sufficient. So please read the text. I have not gone through the text with the class. Please look at the text so that you can capture anything that I have not brought out in trying to explain the three memory store model, or the three store model of memory. The three store model of memory. Look at the text here and make sure that it's very clear to you how you can explain the three store model of memory. So as we had already mentioned earlier, is that memory is, there are challenges. Memory sometimes it's not, we can't, of course, remember everything. Sometimes we forget. And so what are the implications of that? So it is stated here that we need to do a few things to help a human to interact with the computer, because some of the things that the user has to do with remembering. So for example, if you are trying to, as I had said earlier, if you are typing a document, there's a place where you want to boldface your text. Now that calls for remembering. So where is the icon? What command? Of course, in this case, we are dealing with the using these graphical user interfaces, so it's likely to be an icon. So how can you remember the icon? What can help you to remember anyway? So the implication is that we need to come up with some ways of helping a user to quickly remember the functions that they need to use in order to be able to accomplish the tasks they want to accomplish at the computer. And so it says that this implication, let me read this text here, that this suggests that the computer interfaces should be designed to be meaningful to the user. The computer interfaces should be designed to be meaningful. This applies both to interfaces which use commands and interfaces which use icons, which we call graphical user interfaces. And so in that context, so I will let you read a little more of that. The whole of this text here is read, but how do we ensure to make commands meaningful? How do we make commands to be meaningful? It says how to ensure the meaningfulness of commands. So how do we make them meaningful to the user? They make commands meaningful to the user. So of course, in this case, we kind of saying, how can we make it easy? If it's a matter of commands that a user has to write, how do we make it easy for the user to recall those commands and be able to use them so that they can go on with their work at the computer and accomplish the goal for which they have come to the computer to do some task. And that is what is explained somewhere here. Some of the ways are suggested of making what we are saying to ensure the meaningfulness of commands, and they are suggested here. For example, the first bullet saying Syntax and commands should be kept simple and natural. So make the commands simple. Of course, nowadays we are now more dealing with graphical user interfaces. But we still once in a while do some commands. Once in a while we still have to write some commands. So how can we make them? How can we make it easy for a user to remember the commands? And so one of the suggested ways that the syntax and commands should be kept simple and natural. At least the word simple there may be easy to recall or at least understand. The number of commands in a system should be limited and in a limited format. So if there are too many, some of the commands the user will forget. So we try to keep the commands to a minimum, but sometimes it's a challenge because it all depends again on what the system is meant to do. So please read again this area here and get to fully understand of meaningful and be able to give a number of suggested ways of doing that. How can you make commands meaningful? Maybe this might be an important section here. Let's see what it's saying here. It says that sometimes a command name may be a word familiar to the user, but in a different context. So again, we want to make so the word may be familiar, but sometimes we may find that in the computer, it is used in a very different context to what we ourselves, especially culturally, we are used to. And so, for example, the word cut, which you use in the cut and paste and copy and paste. So this word, to the computer novice, may mean to severe. So this, I think, the word is supposed to be severe with a sharp instrument rather than to remove from a document. So again, unfortunately, some of these technologies and the words that they use may be coming from a different cultural context, and sometimes they may not always be as appealing to some users as to others. Those that come from the context where this word is used in that way culturally may make sense, but to some other people that are coming from a different context, it may not always make sense. And so sometimes, of course, we have a challenge because we are using systems that are coming from a different cultural context. But again, I think since the world has become a global village, sometimes we find that this is helping that even if it is used in an American context, sometimes we may have already known how the Americans look at this word, and sometimes we may figure out what it is all about and not get too confused how to utilize it at the computer. But anyway, that's also an important issue to highlight, that sometimes the name that has been used in computers for certain cultural contexts may actually be confusing to other cultural contexts. We'll be coming to that sometime later and look at what is called the metaphors. We'll be looking at that. All right, what about the meaningfulness of icons? So the icons, again, we also need to make icons meaningful. And again, here we have some suggested ways of making icons meaningful. It says here that icons can be used for a wide range of functions in interfaces. For example, labeling, warning, identifying, manipulating, being a container. For example, the waste basket kind of an icon. So as I said, some of these are based on something we call metaphor, and we'll also come to look at the metaphor. But in the meantime, please review that. how to make now these are just ways that icons are used at the computer, but how to make them to be meaningful to the user. So there is some suggested ways down here. I will ask you to read on that. Please read on how to make some of the ways suggested of making icons to be meaningful to the user. So keep them simple, make them use of course it's more about, yes, the icon itself needs to also be familiar, but most likely it is the way you label it. Of course, the kind of figure you use for the the diagram symbol that you use for the icon, that may also be important. If you can get an image that is familiar to the user and it almost looks like what you are trying to use the icon for, that would be good. Simple, familiar, be consistent. So that again is important. But as I said, look at the whole list, look at this and get to know the various ways that you can make icons to be meaningful to the user. I want to believe that we have had enough for today. So there is a section here which I want you to also to read on your own. Please look at these multitasking interruptions. This is still has still to do with the issue of memory. So look at that. Issues about how do you handle multitasking interruptions, or what can the designer of human-computer interaction do to deal with the issue of multitasking and interruptions that the user sometimes can find themselves in as they use the computer. And with that, I think we'll reach there for today. And the next session will continue with this area of the human in the human-computer interaction study. But we go to this section talking about perception and issues related to perception as far as theories in human-computer interaction is concerned. So for now, I think we'll end there for the presentation by the lecturer. But I want again to just allow a moment of interaction. Please, you can raise an issue of clarification or a question or any type of comment. So I want to switch back to remove the screen share. This document is already at the portal, so you can access it there. But as I said, I'll need maybe to send the whole bunch of the notes that I have for this unit to the email of the class rep, and he can distribute to the rest of the class in one way or the other, so you can access, you can have all the notes ahead, but of course you'll always have them at the portal, but I may not be very fast in being able to put all the notes in all the topics because it takes quite a process to load at the portal. But of course, I'll make effort to have these notes appear way ahead of the day of the class. So otherwise, yes, so let me remove the share. Let me get back to the screen where you can see the image of the lecturer. And I'm waiting for you now to raise any point of clarification. All right, sorry, I think I had already removed the yes, so any point of clarification or a comment, please you can write at the chat. I think that will be very it's quite a good area to interact. And the chat, you can write a comment or a point of clarification or a question that you can ask the lecturer, but which I will also ask the students to also respond. And thank you, Valerian, for responding to our previous question. Thank you for putting your response there to contribute to the discussion. Yes, Kiprop, you're seeing the screenshot is not displaying. Yes, I have removed the screen share. Oh, I did not share the screen. Oh, sorry. I forgot. Sorry. I did not share the screen, but anyway, sorry for that. But I hope the discussion has been clear. Sorry for not checking that you had raised the comment that the screen had not been shared. I don't know how it happened that I did not do that. But anyway, either way, at least I did not share for a long, or I did not present for a long time since that time. And most of it was just text. This time, at least, okay. Well, if I did not share, well, maybe the only thing that I could it could cause me to at least display that screen. Allow me just a few minutes to display the part of the diagram where there was, there was a diagram, yes. So sorry for that. Sorry, I did not check to see your comment on the screen share that it had not been done. I don't know why I thought it was shared. At least I think it would be good. I show you the diagram for that shows a human memory as a multi-store memory as a diagram. So at least let me know, is it sharing now? Can you see the screen? I don't know, maybe if I forgot to ask us to confirm. At least I should see the diagram now that we already talked about. Yes, thank you for Winnie and Brian confirming that now the screen is sharing. And also, I want to also appreciate Angela confirming that the audio has been very, very clear. That's great. Thank you so much for all those that are confirming that the screen is sharing now. So what I want is just to display the image, and of course you see it later on at when you access the document, just to show. But this document is not really saying much other than what I've just said about the multi-memory model of memory. We call it the multi-model of memory. Multi-model of memory. We say that the memory can be looked at as comprising of three buffers: the short-term memory, which we also call we have the sensory memory first, sensory store. You can call it sensory store or sensory memory, and then there is a short-term memory. Now this is now again, for the sake of comparison, because this is almost coming from the human information processing model. But now these are other researchers now trying to look at the memory and say, again, trying to compare human memory and the memory of the computer. Now, you remember that the computer, we have the RAM, which is normally, sometimes we also even call it the working memory. We say it is a memory that is at work when the computer is working. That's where you run your software. When you are accessing a software, you're actually accessing it from the RAM when it is running. And then, of course, when you want to store something permanently, then we put it in the secondary memory. And so the comparison is that short-term memory compares with the RAM, and the long-term memory compares with the secondary memory. And of course, the sensory memory or the sensory store would be more of buffers, so where some, and of course, these buffers are normally at the output and input devices. You see, sometimes when you are sending, like when maybe if somebody is able to type very fast, then they might find that what they are typing may not reach the memory immediately. Sometimes, of course, that the computer is very fast, but if something is not able to get to the memory, where it can actually the part which can actually call now it has reached the memory, maybe it may have to be put at some place we can call a buffer. When it is not processing, it is put at a buffer. And sometimes actually this buffer is actually part of the RAM also, but it's a place where something is kept before it can reach the processing stage, especially to be processed in the proper area of the RAM. And then finally, if you want to store it permanently, then you have to cause it to go to the secondary memory. So there is that comparison that is being done here. But otherwise, so the diagram here, and as I said, of course, you'll see it. So this is a diagram that captures the concept, and I will not explain more. I just wanted to just display now that I realized it had not been displayed. But it's a very simple diagram. It doesn't have a lot of issues to really explain. So that's I thought it would be good to just go back and have it displayed. I think it's important as to feel that we have looked at this section well enough. All right, so you'll be able to access the diagram, of course, from the document, which is already at the portal there. So you can see everything, the text and all the diagrams, as well as the other one which we were not able to display, but which I drew at the whiteboard, which shows the model, the human information processing model, now put into a diagram form. So, okay, I think that's enough. I want to remove the screen share again. So any question, any comment, any point of clarification? So just a few minutes, then we should be done with the class. So again, I will allow you to respond to the discussion forum at your own time. You can use still a lot of time remaining for this class. You could use the remaining time to respond to the discussion forum issue for this particular topic or area. This is our topic 2. And for now, the far that we have reached, there is an issue raised there for discussion, for replying to respond to at the discussion forum for this particular. So you go to topic 2 and you get the discussion forum there. You click that and it takes you to the question or the issue of discussion, and at the place for that it opens, of course, for that purpose. But just reminding us again, it is very important that you make sure that you have responded to the discussion forum, because it is part of the evaluation. It will certainly count when you come to the evaluation for the assignments. So make sure that you always respond. You leave a reply at the discussion forum, whether we do it together in class, or I have to ask you, as I'm doing right now, to respond at your own time. We don't want to remain below this time now. I want to allow you some time to respond to the discussion forum, but also that you don't just in case you don't respond immediately, make sure that you don't take more than a week to respond, because at some point it will be blocked. At least after a week it will be blocked, and you will not be able to leave your reply. So make sure that you reply as soon as possible, and especially at this time, if I allow us close the session a bit early, then you use the time and respond before you log out. Respond to the discussion forum issue. You could do it immediately. The lecturer brings the meeting to an end by coming to the end of the class time. All right, so, well, I can't see any question this far, but maybe somebody want to ask by mic. I think your mic is accessible. So if you want to also raise your comment or question by mic, I think you should be able to also use your mic, and you are welcome to do that. Okay, so giving us a few minutes to make any query before I close our session for today. Thank you, Odhiambo, saying that the presentation went on quite nicely. Thank you for that comment. And Dongo is also commenting about the class. The class has been very clear. That we are grateful. The network seems to be very good, and our server seems to be also doing very well, quite fast. Yes, we appreciate that the class has gone very well and it's clear. Thank you that you are letting me know that from your end. Thank you so much. All right. So I think I will therefore bring our class time to an end. So our class time, therefore, this session is over. Our class time is over. But of course, you can continue to do your part of the work, continue to access the system and respond to the discussion forum. But thank you, everybody, for making it for today. And so for now, the class is over. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.